Thank you all for attending my presentation. My name is James Fisher and I was born and raised in D.C. My earliest mischiefs were centered just a short distance away in the area of Howard Theater. Let me also introduce my invaluable friend, Tanya Hardy, as she's helped me cast the first genealogical light on my ancestral family. Her light continued to shine even brighter and always unwaveringly. Thank you. I had no imagination of discovering such family treasures. It's been a continuous and continues to be a truly unbelievable journey. I thank my extended family for their support and encouragement as family. In another breath, I must also thank both Tiggy and Barbara, two local writer researchers who discovered my family tree, posted on Ancestral Farm, and emailed the question, was I aware that I had famous ancestors who they and others had written about? Amazingly, their knowledge immediately stretched my family tree backwards to 1773. Very rare for an African American family to be able to reach back 7 generations. They've taken a special interest in my ancestral family and have been searching for my ancestors of Captain George Pointer. They had previously published an article in Maryland Historical Magazine for 2012 titled An Old and Obscure Citizen, Captain George Pointer and the Potomac Company. Another article is scheduled to be published in the District of Columbia Historical Journal, Spring 2016, issue entitled Free Blacks of Washington County, D.C., the Descendants of George Pointer. Lastly, 2 of them and my very skilled friend, Tanya, will put pen to paper and co-write a book based on George Pointer and Descendants very soon. As you can see, I've been blessed to have such a family tree reaching back 7 generations. I'm here to speak on the Harris brothers. But first, I would be remiss not to also proudly share a few high notes about their grandfather, Captain George Pointer. His is not a household name, but surely merits introduction in this museum as well as others. Anyone would be hard-pressed to find an uneducated ex-slave who could read, write, command the titles of supervising engineer, captain, and lastly, superintendent. He directed a workforce for both white and Negroes between the last quarter of the 17th century and the first quarter of the 18th century. Captain George Pointer was born into slavery in 1773 on a plantation in what is now known as Montgomery County, Maryland. He was hired out by his owner at about the age of 12 to work for a company put together by and partly financed by George Washington. The company was called the Potomac Canal Company, and its mission was to extend, improve, and make the Potomac River more navigable for boats and transports goods and building materials along the route to and from the capital. He was hired out. He was a hired out slave when the Ptolemy Company gave him a little cottage that was nested off the canal and about 6 miles north of Georgetown. After working for the company a while, this owner cut him a deal. If he could amass $300 to pay him by a certain date, he could purchase his freedom. He did so at the age of 19 and continued working for the company. He married soon after purchasing his freedom to a woman who was free. I suspect she might have been Native American. This ensured the legal freedom of his family and descendants. At the age of 20 to 23, he was put in charge of 5 boats transporting large construction stones downriver for the construction of the capital city federal buildings. He was one of the first employees and last paid employees of the company before it changed hands. This work was directly instrumental in the building of our capital. Yet, Captain George Pointer would have been easily dismissed from history had it not been for an 11-page partition letter he wrote in 1829 that easily doubles as an autobiography of his life work with the company, as well as a chronological account of the prominent people he came across. I'm sure many historians would have researched George Washington, the Capitol construction, or Capitol slave labor, and discovered this humble, elegant, and yet challenging 11-page letter written by an obscure Negro were in total disbelief. Lastly, in this recent times, I've read that there's cross-the-board interest with acknowledging Negroes for their contribution in the building of this capital. It saddens me to have learned that there's a wax figure dressed as a Negro slave installed in the Great Falls Welcoming Center Museum, which is supposed to be Captain George Pointer, yet it remains nameless.
Talk about what that is. Talk about
that. Pictured here is the area of the cabin that was given to George Pointer by the Ptolemy Company before he purchased his freedom. This cabin rested near Lock 6. These are the remains of his cabin and also dynamite field. It's believed that when he was first hired at the age of about 12, his first duty was to guard the dynamite as it was next to the cabin. This is the picture from the cabin. It's viewed from his cabin. He and his family lived in his cabin for over 50-some years. This is
Oh, you want to talk about? Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a lock at Great Falls. He spent a great deal of time directing workforce and working at Great Falls. This is during the time that he picked up the skills as engineer and moved to be the supervising engineer. You got some more tricks?
No.
Okay, this is a portion of the family tree, and it's a portion because we start with George Pointer and we end with the Harris family. This is a picture of the Harris brothers' mother and father's property that they purchased. I messed up here. It was a 2-acre or more parcel of land located in what is now Chevy Chase, D.C. This property remained in the family for over 80 years until they were forced to move out, as well as others, Negro settlements in that area by the D.C. government for pennies. What sits on it now is Lafayette Park and Lafayette School. Good? This is a document regarding the Harris brothers' mother. After marrying their father, Thomas, she wanted to ensure that her child, at the time she was pregnant, that her child would be free. So several times during that period, she had to prove that she was free. The Pointer family was very well known, and they had very little problem with having whites verify that they were free. Moving to the Harris brothers. Both John and Joseph Harris realized the call of action early during the Civil War and were some of the first to enlist just after the D.C. The District Colored Volunteer Troops became the 1st Regiment U.S. Colored Troops. They both went to Mason Island, down Roosevelt Island, located across from the Kennedy Center, to enlist on July 10, 1863. They both entered as privates and were assigned to the 1st Regiment, Company G. At the time of enlistment, John's age was recorded as 21, living in D.C. as a laborer, with physical description of 5'11" in height, dark complexion, scar on right shin, black eyes and black hair. His younger brother Joseph was 17, also living in D.C. as a saloon waiter, with a physical description of 5'3" tall, mulatto, scar on right arm above elbow, gray eyes, and brown hair. At some point in July 1863, the writer Walt Whitman visited Camp Green on Mason's Island, commenting on the various companies of the 1st Regiment and what he generally saw. Of their company, he wrote, "W.G. full dress with brass scales on shoulders, looked perhaps as well as any company. The men had an unusually alert look." That means they were bad. Colonel John Holman was 38 years old when given command of the 1st Regiment of the USCT. He was from Maine and considered an abolitionist. He believed in fairness and insisted on high levels of discipline and training. He won the trust and admiration of the men in his regiment. Appears that all my documentation didn't print out, so I'm gonna have to freelance from here on out.
Okay.
This is the Battle of Wilson's Wall. It's one of the battles that really distinguished the 1st Regiment. It forever silenced all the critics of black troops. It silenced them throughout the war. Both Harrises were in this battle, but before they mustered out, they both were injured. They were also in the siege at Petersburg. And continued to distinguish the 1st Regiment as a truly fighting force. They received great praise from many people, whites, generals, and whatever. They proved fearless, and in one incident, they rushed the enemy pickets using tactics that were very unusual and unique. But they rushed the pickets, and it wasn't expected that they would leap over them and continue after the foe. And they were chasing the foe and would have ended the war sooner had not the commanders called them back. And it appears that the commanders weren't ready to end the war, but surely the 1st Regiment was. These are the documentations of the enlistment. These were 2 documents regarding John Harris. He was wounded in a battle, and he was shot in the hand. He was taken to the hospital. One finger on his left hand was amputated immediately. About 2 weeks later, they performed surgery on a second finger and removed part of a bone. But he remained in the hospital for nearly and they lost track of him. So they mistakenly categorized him as a deserter for a while. He straightened that situation out, and he reported back to duty. But my thoughts was, when I first read it, was that he had hospital skills and they didn't want to release him. This is Joseph Harris, and it speaks on his mustering out. This is John Harris' discharge papers, official discharge papers. This is the result of my venturing into a family tree. The first ever serious family reunion. It was held in Lafayette Park. There were a lot of inquiring guys, but we were there. We had a ball, and from it, we hope to continue this annually. There's a lot of pride in discovering not one, not two, but three prominent people in our family. And I really, really wish that I can heighten the pride within my entire family. And we can instill it for our generation to come, because it does make a difference. It really does make a difference to be able to embrace someone in the family, in our ancestral tree, in pride. And it will challenge us. It will challenge them. So, I thank you all for participating and coming out hearing me. And I'm sorry I'm short on documentation. Again, thank you.
Mr. Fisher will be happy to answer questions. He is legally deaf. So if you want to come up and ask him
I have one more thing to say.
as he didn't hear me talking. If you want to ask him questions afterwards, he can read lips. So if you want to go up and inquire about anything, he has lots of information about this. I think it kind of threw him that he didn't have the paperwork, but he knows this information well. So please feel free to ask him questions. Okay.
I wasn't interested very much in Civil War times, and I didn't really dig too deeply to educate myself about slavery, but that was unavoidable. Yet, my interests weren't great as it should have been. But since venturing into my family tree and learning about my ancestors participating in the Civil War, I found a book that I fell in love with. Harris, Black, and Cooper. Black, Cooper, and Bright. I'm sorry. It's sold in this museum. I picked this a copy up from this museum. What makes this book different is that it names names of average people, the average soldiers, the slaves, the ex-slaves. It tells you what it can, what it knew, was documented of personal stories that you can relate to. My problem, and one thing that deterred me, was that in my reading, it was just very easy for the writer to just say the slaves or the Negroes. The writer tells personalized stories of people who happen to be Negro or slaves. So I recommend this book highly.